I'm not sure why that day has stayed with me. Maybe it was the silence in the air, the kind that stretches a moment too long. Or maybe it was her, how she carried herself like someone who didn't need anyone, yet made me want to stay close anyway. The repair shop was half empty that morning, dust hanging in the streaks of sunlight slanting through the front window. I was behind the counter, flipping through a manual I didn't really need, just passing the time. The bell above the door gave a tired little chime, and that's when she walked in. She wasn't like the usual customers. Most people glance around, fidget, rush their words. But she moved slowly, like the space belonged to her just as much as it belonged to me. Mid-40s, hair pulled back, but with a few strands loose, framing her face in a way that didn't look careless. It looked intentional. She wore a dark jacket over a simple blouse, nothing flashy, but there was this confidence in the way she tugged it closed when she noticed the draft from the door. "Do you fix watches?" she asked, holding up a small silver wristwatch in her palm. Her voice was low, even. No wasted words. "Sometimes," I said, too quickly, standing straighter than I needed to. My hands suddenly felt clumsy, like they didn't know where to rest. She laid the watch on the counter. "It belonged to my father. It stopped a few weeks ago. I keep forgetting to get it looked at." I nodded, picking it up carefully. The metal was cool, smooth against my fingertips. "I can check it. Might just need a new battery." Her eyes flicked to mine when I said that. Just a second too long, but enough. Something unspoken in it, though I couldn't have said what. I looked down, turning the watch over, pretending to be more absorbed than I was. My pulse had picked up, though I couldn't explain why. "I can wait," she added, glancing at the old chairs by the window. "If you don't mind." "Not at all," I muttered, though my throat was dry. As I worked, I was too aware of her presence. The sound of her jacket rustling as she sat. The way she crossed her legs, leaned back, then shifted as if the chair was too small for her. Every movement felt deliberate, even if it wasn't. "Do you like working here?" she asked suddenly. The question caught me off guard. "It's fine," I said, then immediately hated how flat that sounded. I cleared my throat. "I mean, it's quiet, which is good sometimes." She tilted her head, watching me. Quiet can be good, or it can be lonely. I didn't know what to say to that, so I just looked back down at the tiny gears under my hands. My fingers trembled once, enough to make me pretend I needed to adjust the magnifying glass. The minutes stretched. She didn't fill them with chatter, and I didn't either. The silence should have been uncomfortable, but it wasn't. It felt charged, like static before a storm. Finally, the watch ticked alive again. I held it out to her, avoiding her eyes until she reached across the counter. Her fingers brushed mine as she took it. Just a passing touch, barely there. But I swear she lingered half a second longer than she needed to. "Thank you," she said softly. Not just polite. Softer, warmer, like the words carried something else she wasn't saying. I nodded, unable to think of anything clever. She slipped the watch back onto her wrist, fastening the clasp with practiced ease. Then she glanced back once, just before stepping out the door. The bell chimed, and the shop felt emptier than it had all morning. I told myself it was nothing. Just another customer. Just another watch. But that half-second touch, I couldn't stop replaying it. I didn't expect to see her again so soon. A week later, she was back at the shop, this time with her car, not her father's watch. The hood had been sticking, she said, and she needed someone to check it. I was already covered in grease when she arrived, crouched low with a wrench in my hand. I almost didn't notice her until I caught the faint sound of heels tapping against the concrete floor. When I looked up, she was standing just inside the doorway, arms crossed, jacket draped over one arm, like she'd walked straight from somewhere important. "Busy?" she asked, tone lighter than before, though her eyes didn't quite match it. "Not really," I lied, wiping my hands on a rag. "What's going on with it?" She explained quickly, precise, but a little distracted, like her thoughts kept slipping elsewhere. I noticed her hands as she spoke, steady at first, then tightening on the edge of her jacket when she realized she was rambling. I lifted the hood, poking around. She hovered near the doorway at first, then stepped closer, the faint smell of her perfume cutting through the sharper sense of oil and steel. I tried to focus on the work, but I kept catching glimpses of her out of the corner of my eye. How she pressed her lips together when she was thinking, how her shoulders sagged for just a moment when she thought I wasn't looking. "You okay?" The words slipped out before I could stop them. She blinked, caught off guard. Then she gave a quick laugh. Too quick, too practiced. Of course. Why wouldn't I be? I shrugged, pretending to focus on a loose cable. "Just, you look tired, that's all." There was a pause. A long one. Long enough that I risked glancing up. She was staring past me, at nothing, her jaw tight. "Some weeks are longer than others," she murmured finally. "Not meant for me. Maybe not meant for anyone." But I heard it. I wanted to ask more, but the guarded way she pulled her jacket tighter around herself stopped me. Instead, I tightened the last bolt, closed the hood with a dull thud, and handed her the keys. "All set," I said. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. She smiled then, small, quick, but real. "You're fast." I shrugged again, feeling heat rise in my chest. "You caught me on a good day." Her laugh came softer this time, unguarded. It wasn't loud, but it filled the space around us in a way the clatter of tools never could. I didn't even realize I was smiling until she looked at me, really looked, and the air shifted. Her hand brushed mine as she reached for the keys. Not clumsy this time. Intentional, or maybe just careless. But it lingered, just barely. The shop was too quiet. My throat too dry. She cleared her throat, stepping back. "Thank you." I nodded, though I wasn't sure what I was agreeing to. When she walked away, jacket slipping over her shoulder, I couldn't stop my eyes from following. Not because of how she looked, though I noticed that too, but because of the small drop in her posture, the kind of weariness people hide until they forget someone's watching. And I was watching, more than I should have been. It was later than I'd planned to stay. The shop was closed, lights dimmed except for the desk lamp I'd left on. Rain tapped steadily against the windows, blurring the street outside. I was halfway through locking up when I heard the knock. She stood there with her umbrella folded at her side, hair damp from the storm. The way she looked at me, hesitant, almost apologetic, made me step aside before I even thought about it. "Sorry to bother you so late," she said, shaking raindrops from her jacket. I was driving back from a dinner, and the engine started making that sound again. I didn't know where else to go. "It's fine," I said, though my pulse wasn't. "You're lucky I was still here." Lucky. That word felt heavier than it should have. I pulled the car in under the awning, then ducked back inside with her to wait for the engine to cool. She perched on the edge of the chair by the counter, brushing damp strands of hair behind her ear. The rain outside made the room feel smaller, like the world had shrunk to just the two of us and the hum of the desk lamp. "You didn't have to," she said suddenly. "Stay open this late, I mean. You probably had plans." I shook my head. "Not really." Her eyes lingered on me, searching, like she didn't believe that. Or maybe she did, and that's what unsettled her. We sat in the quiet for a while. She drummed her fingers against the countertop, then stilled them. I caught myself staring at her hands. How elegant they were, veins faintly visible under her skin, nails short but neat. Hands that had lived more life than mine. "Do you ever feel?" She stopped, exhaling through her nose. "Never mind." I leaned forward before I could stop myself. "Feel what?" Her lips parted, but just then her phone buzzed on the counter. The sound cut through the quiet like a blade. She glanced at the screen, just long enough for me to catch the name lighting it up. A man's name. Her jaw tightened. She flipped the phone over, screen down. "Sorry," she murmured, forcing a small smile. "Distraction." I wanted to ask. I didn't. The question lodged in my throat, heavy, unspeakable. Instead, I tried to joke, though my voice betrayed me. "Whoever it is, they've got terrible timing." That earned a real laugh, quick and surprised. Her eyes softened, and for a heartbeat she leaned just a little closer, like we were sharing something private. The rain hammered harder against the glass. I swear, if I'd reached across the counter, her hand would have met mine halfway. But I didn't move, and neither did she. Her phone buzzed again, and she pushed the chair back, breaking whatever had been gathering in the silence. "I should go," she said, voice steadier now, like she'd rebuilt her walls in the span of a single breath. I walked her to the door, though I couldn't find words that mattered. She gave me one last glance before stepping into the rain, umbrella snapping open. And I stood there, watching her disappear into the storm, my hand still resting on the doorframe. Like if I held it long enough, I could freeze the moment before it slipped away. The rain hadn't let up in 2 days. Roads slick, gutters overflowing. The whole town felt waterlogged and restless. I was closing up the shop when she appeared again, not with a car or a watch this time. Just herself. She didn't explain why she was there, and I didn't ask. I only unlocked the door wider, letting her step inside, shaking droplets from her umbrella. "You'll think I'm losing it," she said, almost to herself, brushing damp hair back. "Showing up here all the time." I managed a crooked smile. Could be worse places to end up. That made her laugh softly, but it faded as quickly as it came. She stayed standing, arms folded, eyes roaming the cluttered shelves as though the bolts and broken radios might have an answer she couldn't find. "I just didn't want to go home yet," she admitted. Her voice was low, careful. Something in my chest tightened. I wanted to say I understood, but the words caught. Instead, I sat on the edge of the counter and gestured to the chair across from me. She sat, finally, posture stiff, hands clasped in her lap. The silence stretched, thick and charged. The rain on the windows filled the gaps, but it wasn't enough to drown out the weight of everything we weren't saying. She was the one who broke it. "What are we doing?" Her eyes flicked to mine, sharp and raw. Not angry, just exposed. I swallowed hard. My instinct was to look away, but I couldn't. "I don't know." Her lips parted, then pressed together again. She leaned back in the chair, arms crossing tighter. "This isn't normal. I don't show up like this. I don't linger." I wanted to joke, to lighten it, but nothing came. Because she was right. Whatever this was, it wasn't casual anymore. "You could tell me to stop," I said finally. "If that's what you want." She stared at me for a long time, her gaze heavy enough to make me shift on the counter. Finally, she whispered, "I don't know what I want." The words landed like a confession, fragile and dangerous all at once. I nodded slowly, trying to breathe around the knot in my throat. "Then maybe we just sit with that." For now. We did. Neither of us moved. The air between us was so dense I could almost feel it pressing against my skin. She tapped her fingers against her arm once, then stilled them, eyes never leaving mine. For a moment, it felt like the entire room tilted toward her, like one wrong word would tip us both into something we couldn't climb out of. She looked down finally, her voice breaking quieter than the rain outside. "You make it hard to remember who I'm supposed to be." The next time I saw her, she wasn't herself. Or maybe she was, but stripped down, tired in a way makeup and posture couldn't cover. She came in late afternoon, the light outside already fading, and placed her phone on the counter like it was heavier than the watch she'd brought that first day. "Battery again?" I asked gently, trying to keep it light. Her lips pressed into the hint of a smile. "Not this time." She slid the phone closer to me, screen cracked, a voicemail still paused on the display. I didn't move to touch it, didn't need to. The unread message sat there like an open wound. "I thought I deleted them all," she said, voice low, eyes on the floor. And then this one showed up again. She folded her arms, not in defiance, but to keep herself together. I don't even know why I pressed play. The silence between us wasn't the charged kind this time. It was fragile, brittle, like if I spoke too soon, the moment would splinter. She finally looked at me, eyes steady but rimmed with exhaustion. It was my husband. 2 years ago, just before the accident. I felt my throat tighten. I hadn't known. I guessed there was someone. There always is, but not this. "He left me a message that night," she continued, fingers tracing the edge of the counter. "Just asking me to pick up milk on the way home." A bitter laugh slipped through. "That's all. Nothing meaningful. Nothing final." And her voice cracked, then steadied. I never called him back. I wanted to say something, anything, but my mouth stayed dry. The rain outside had started again, faint at first, then heavier, like it was filling the silence for me. She inhaled sharply, straightening her shoulders as though she'd revealed too much. "You remind me of him sometimes," she said, so quietly I almost thought I imagined it. That landed deep, deeper than I was ready for. My chest tightened, but I didn't flinch. I just nodded, because anything else felt like a betrayal of how carefully she'd offered those words. I don't mean it as unfair, she added quickly, guilt flickering in her eyes. It just happens. The way you stand, or how you listen without interrupting. I catch myself forgetting you're not him. Her hands gripped her jacket now, knuckles pale. I stepped closer, not too close, just enough that she'd know I wasn't retreating. You don't have to explain. My voice was low, almost a whisper. For the first time, she let herself look at me without armor. Not searching, not guarded, just raw. The desk lamp buzzed faintly. The rain hit harder against the glass. Neither of us moved. And then she whispered, almost breaking, almost steady. I don't know if I want to stop forgetting. She didn't come back for days. I told myself it was for the best, that what she'd said about forgetting, about her husband, had been too raw to leave untouched. She needed distance. I needed to respect it. But when the bell above the shop door finally chimed again, and she stepped in, I knew the distance hadn't changed anything. Not really. She wasn't polished this time. No careful jacket, no controlled smile. Just jeans, a sweater, and hair pulled back loosely, strands falling where they wanted. She looked real. More real than I'd ever seen her. Hi, she said softly, like the word itself might break. I set down the wrench I wasn't really using. Hi. For a moment, neither of us moved. The silence had weight again, but not the sharp kind. Not charged, not brittle. Heavy, yes, but softer somehow. Like it was finally carrying us instead of pressing us down. She walked closer, slow, deliberate. I've been thinking, she began, then stopped, exhaling through her nose. And I keep coming back here, even when I don't mean to. Her voice cracked just slightly, but she didn't look away this time. I swallowed, heart unsteady. Me too. That earned the faintest smile from her, tired but honest. This doesn't make sense, she whispered. You know that, right? Yeah, I said. I know. We stood there, no more than a foot apart. I could see the faint lines around her eyes, the way her hands tightened and relaxed at her sides. She wasn't trying to hide the tremor in her breath anymore. I'm not asking for. She hesitated, searching for the words. I don't even know what I'm asking for. You don't have to, I said gently. We don't need to name it. The silence stretched again, but this time it didn't feel unfinished. It felt enough. Complete in itself. Slowly, carefully, she sat down on the old chair by the counter. I lowered myself beside her, not too close, not too far. Just near enough that our shoulders brushed when we shifted. The touch was small, accidental in appearance, but neither of us pulled away. Her hand rested on her knee, fingers curled. I let mine drop close enough that when she finally opened her palm, her fingers found mine without either of us saying a word. We stayed like that. No declarations, no promises. Just her hand in mine, the quiet hum of the lamp, the muted rhythm of rain outside. She leaned her head back, eyes closing, a soft breath escaping as though she'd been holding it for years. I didn't move. I didn't need to. Because whatever this was, confusing, flawed, impossible, it was ours. And in that silence, I knew neither of us would leave it behind. I think about those nights more than I should. The quiet ones in the shop, the rain against the glass, the way she'd sit with her jacket folded neatly in her lap, never quite relaxed, never quite ready to leave either. We never called it love. Maybe that's what made it real. There weren't declarations or promises, just a slow unraveling of all the defenses we both carried. She had her history, her grief. I had my youth, my silence, the weight of not being enough and somehow being too much all at once. But in between those contradictions, something grew. I learned that longing doesn't always need to be solved. Sometimes it just needs to be shared. That sitting side by side in a room, breathing the same heavy air, can mean more than 1,000 words. That sometimes the bravest thing a person can admit isn't love, but simply, I don't know what I want. And her? She learned she didn't always have to be the strong one, the one who knew what to say, how to carry herself, how to keep moving. She let herself be tired, be uncertain, be human in front of me. That was the gift she never named, but gave anyway. I don't know where it goes from here. We still see each other, sometimes planned, sometimes not. Sometimes she laughs like she used to. Other times she falls quiet and stares at the floor as though she's chasing something that slipped away years ago. And me? I've stopped trying to figure out what it should be. It's enough that when she sits beside me, her hand finds mine without searching. It's enough that I catch her looking at me sometimes, not with regret, not with sorrow, but with that small, unguarded warmth I can't stop replaying. If someone asked me what I learned, I'd say this. Love doesn't always look like the movies. Sometimes it's a cracked phone with a saved voicemail you can't erase. Sometimes it's a broken watch you keep fixing even though it'll stop again. Sometimes it's silence shared between two people who shouldn't have met, but did, and found a home in the unlikeliest place. That's the afterglow we're left with. Not fireworks, not grand confessions, just the quiet collapse into something neither of us planned, but both of us needed. And maybe that's enough. If this story made you feel something, let me know in the comments. Would you want more stories like this?